All right. Last week, we talked about life coming from the noon, which was a fish swimming in water, and it represents activity and life. And I took off from that and didn't really talk about noon the whole rest of the time. I was talking about life and the life that we get from God, who is our source of life. And you have to be plugged in order to have that life. And if you're not connected to God, then you don't have life, because he's the source of all true life. And you can, just because you have a beating heart and blood going through your body and you're sucking air and stuff like that, doesn't necessarily mean you have life.
You called those zombies last
Yeah, I called those zombies. Yeah, because if you're basically living dead, and what do we call that?
You're dead
zombies.
from the neck up. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
Alive only in the flesh.
So, well, before that was Mem, and that's waters, and that has a lot to do with the Messiah. And it's kind of an interesting point to know that fish can't live for very long outside of water. So in order for fish to have life, they have to be immersed in water. So in order for us to have life, we have to be immersed into the Messiah. It's kind of interesting. A point that I didn't bring out last week. This week is the letter Samekh, and it most of the time when you see it, it looks like the top letter up there. It's just basically kind of like an O with a little flag on top of it. It used to be a lot cooler looking and easier to draw. I don't like drawing Sameks. It's even though it's just like an O with a little flag on it. It's for some reason it's still hard for me to draw. I don't know why, but it's a lot easier to just go and you have to add the sound effects. Otherwise, it's not as exciting. Right? It's a lot better. Life is a lot better with sound effects. Yeah. Yeah. And then, well, John showed me one that looked where the lines were more straight, and it looked more like a TV antenna on top of a house. It also kind of, one of the two actually looks like a symbol on a electrical schematic. If anybody knows anything about electrical schematics, there's something that's kind of similar to that on those, and I don't know what it means. But ohms maybe? Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. So what it was, though, is a picture, and you can kind of see more what it was here. It was a prop for a tree. You know how farmers, when they have a young tree and it needs to stay,
I thought that was like a tree.
stable, whatever, until it gets bigger and stronger. They put a stick or something up next to it to prop it up. Well, that's essentially what the word picture was a support or a prop, and it represents support. It can also represent twisting or slowly turning. But my teaching is going to be off of the idea of being a support and how we are to support one another. And where we start out, it's most important for us to support one another as the body of Messiah. We also have to provide, as a body, we have to provide support for those outside of the body to help bring them in. Now, I've told you before that when I teach as much to myself as I do to everybody else, and this week maybe even a little bit more so. I actually don't really like this letter a whole lot. I'll tell you why in a minute.
Not just because you don't like to draw it.
Right? Yeah, not just because I don't like to draw it. The reason for that is because when I grew up, I was an only child, so I didn't have brothers and sisters to play with, and didn't have a whole lot of friends either. And part of that was because I didn't like boys, because I didn't like being around. Personality wise, it just was an entirely different personality. They tend to be very aggressive and loud and sometimes violent, and just
Boys.
yeah, boys. And I just didn't. I was very quiet and creative. I wasn't athletic at all, and so I just didn't fit in with all that. And so I had a handful of friends, but not a whole lot. And then when it came to girls, personality-wise, I got along with them better because they're not as aggressive. They're more creative. They tend to be, well, until they get junior high age. They tend to be quieter, kind of.
You remember him?
Yeah, I'm talking in general terms. Yeah, but one way or another, I got along with them better, but I lacked the self-confidence to actually make friends with. Now I have no problem talking to girls, but now it's a little more creepy. So, especially since I'm married. So,
That's funny.
although God is bringing me into a ministry to pregnant teens, so my better self-confidence will probably come in handy, because it really wouldn't go very well. So you're pregnant, huh? That real bashful,
Zona's being challenged.
Yeah. So I say all that to say, like, I grew up 80 to 90% of the time I was on my own. I was by myself. Well, yeah, I had parents, but it's not like I did a whole lot.
And they both worked outside the home.
Yeah. Well, and they both. I grew up in their submarine shop, and
did they repair them or build them there?
they built them, and people ate them. Yeah. So. And liked them, apparently, because as I found out recently, they were very popular, and I was actually a little bit more popular than I thought I was, being the little boy who grew up in the window in my parents' shop. I was, yeah. And
strange marketing tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked. I got along a lot better with adults than I did with kids my own age. And I could sit down with an adult and talk their ear off, but I didn't have, when it came to interacting with kids my own age, I had a lot more difficulty with that. So I grew up used to being by myself and entertaining myself and not having a lot of friends. And I was cool with that. I kind of had my own little world that I lived in, and I know, and I know I still am there. But see, the thing is, God's changed me a lot, because whether I wanted to or not, because by the time shortly after I got done with college, God saw to it that it's not good for the man to be alone. And there's a lot of reasons for that, so he decided to give me a wife. And it was actually more of a conspiracy, with both God and my mom. And if I do have any Jewish in me, I'm pretty sure it's through my mom's side, because she kind of has this Jewish mom personality. She's from New Jersey. You don't argue with my mom. So when she says, go walk the girl to the car, okay.
She pushed him out the door.
Yeah, I think she's
to the car.
I think she still thinks that we're married in large part due to the fact that she made me walk Mandy out to the car. And so yeah, it was both my mom and God, and 'cause I don't have time to go into it, but it wasn't me. And it was not me. Yeah.
Wasn't your charm?
I didn't do it. It was not me.
It wasn't me either.
One of my most humbling stories was when we were in a choir and we were in Hawaii of all places, and I was on a beach walking along the beach, and I had a certain destination I was trying to get to, and she started following me.
I thought he was interesting.
Stalking.
And
Well, I figured I'd catch up in just a few steps, and then we'd make conversation.
it would have been really cool if God had put something in my path and made me trip and say, "Hey, you idiot, stop walking. There's your future wife is following you." But that didn't happen, and I was so focused on where I was going, I don't even know if I knew she was there. And I just kept walking, and she finally gave up. And here I'm on a beach in Hawaii.
I did. I could not catch up. It's like he's getting further and further, and I'm like, I'm walking on the sand. Like, this is ridiculous.
It was not me. It was God, thankfully.
Yeah. That was in January. Our first date was May. It took him a while to get the hint that I was.
Interested?
Yeah.
Where there
That's
was, there's a. I'm thankful for that, and because there's a lot of benefits to it. But being a guy who's used to being alone, there is some adjustment to the whole like two shall become one deal. And then God wasn't done yet. He decided that my life was too quiet, and that I needed not just one, not just two, but like 5 kids and a dog.
And a cat.
And well, the cat. She doesn't really make much noise, but yeah.
Hey,
And
did you
a-
insist on the dog?
Yeah.
I know. She keeps to herself upstairs.
So-
With 5 kids.
My quiet little world isn't so quiet anymore. But and he wasn't done yet. He's okay. You have a wife. You have kids. Now you need a congregation to lead. And have you ever felt like God is confusing you for somebody else?
Yep.
Yeah. And you're like, you got the wrong guy here. And he's like, no, I don't. And so,
The Lord refines in time.
yeah. So, for an introvert who tends to keep to himself and feels comfortable in that, where I've gotten used to this is like a stretch. God has had to do a lot in me to bring me to this point, and I enjoy Friday nights, and I'm sad when we have to cancel because of sickness or
You
something. I
should
miss
see him.
that social time. Yeah.
Eli has strep. I'm like, Kevin? Knock, knock, knock. We
I
have
know.
to cancel. Yeah.
Yeah, a
He
lot.
doesn't get mad at me. He's just like, what?
Well, the rest of us
So.
appreciate it when you do.
Yes, yes. I'm sure.
So, the Samekh is about supporting one another, supporting others, being supported by others, and I grew up totally not used to that, being essentially supporting myself with the exception of the help that I got from my parents, which was a lot. But then God started putting me in one situation after another, where I had to support others. I had to be supported by others. The last 15 months we didn't have a vehicle. We had to rely on you guys and thankfully, we had that to get from one place to another. And we prayed for a vehicle, and instead of giving us a vehicle, he gave us people with vehicles. It's kind of humbling to have to do that, but that's how God operates. In Ecclesiastes 4:9-12, I could probably at least summarize most of it. I'm going to read it. Well, yeah,
He did have it memorized.
I do basically, but I want to make sure I get everything. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him that is alone when he falls. And this is King James. Anyway, for he has not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat, but how can one be warm alone? If one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. So, we are created for community and for relying upon one another. We're not created to go through life on our own and be these lone rangers in life. And actually, I just saw the movie yesterday. Even the Lone Ranger had Tonto, so he wasn't completely alone. He was the Lone Ranger because all the other Rangers were killed. I never realized that. So, we live in a culture that does a real good job at isolating people. And nowadays, you can very easily just live in your own place, and you can do all your shopping, all your social thing, all your entertainment, everything you can just do from the comfort of your own home on your computer, sitting in front of TV. You don't have to we don't interact with our neighbors anymore. It's a very isolationist society. And
cubicle.
yeah, we work in cubicles and live in apartments. I should tell you, apartments.
Yeah.
And we put fences around our property, which, especially after this last weekend, that's actually a good thing although it doesn't always work.
It worked up until this last weekend.
Yeah.
Usually works during the day.
So the result of this is we have millions of people living in this country that are all essentially living their own life and not really.
They're caught up on the ego and TV, all this stuff they put on.
Oh yeah.
There's so much space in our mind that's reserved and preserved for God that is being filled with all this other nonsense.
Good way of putting
just
it.
ego, absorbed, selfish, antichrist consciousness.
Right.
It's a state of being, like he says, it's said among you one will come, but I say unto you, anyone who denies the path of righteousness is an antichrist. And when you see it, our whole nation is basically evolving and revolving around the ego, which is just consumed in vanity.
Very selfish.
Well,
Numbers that don't exist, they drive for money. Satan has so many tools that deflect and reject that space that's our, as individuals, one-on-one personal relationship with God. It's totally being it's almost assimilated, like the Borg or something. They want to
trying to erode the whole thing.
And they come in so cool. You need it, you got to be a part of it. And people are just getting to the point where they, like you said, they're just concealed.
right.
The truth has been revealed. People are still just I wouldn't say afraid, but just more consumed. It's our duty to show them you got to see through the fear, and sometimes you got to take chances to do the work of the Most High and make sacrifices.
Right.
And to break those barriers.
Yeah. And mixed with that is this whole idea. Oh, I was going to say the primary teaching. Not that I ever read it, but I was taught this in one of my classes. Primary teaching of the Satanic Bible is not that Satan is God or there is no God or anything, but you are God.
Yeah, putting yourself
It,
above God.
it's like it puts the focus on the individual, and you are what's important in life, and you do what you think is best and what serves you the most. And I mean, you see that all over in our culture, and it comes from hell.
Aleister Crowley said, "Do what thou will."
Let the wicked do wicked, let the righteous do righteous.
Yep.
The fruits will be shown to the works. Man's work.
And in our culture, we have this philosophy that each person is in control of their own destiny, and if you, especially here in America, it's assumed that if you work hard enough and you get an education and you stay out of trouble and this and that you will succeed. And people who do succeed, they end up with this attitude that, well, I'm where I'm at because I put in the work and I went and I got an education and I stay out of trouble and I did this and it's all because of what I did. And so then why should I help the bum on the street? Because obviously he's there because he screwed up his life.
Yeah. He's lazy.
And he's lazy, he's stupid, and that's not even true.
No, they put in the work too.
Yeah.
There's PhDs on the street.
A lot.
Yep.
People like you're saying, people do look at the outward appearance only, and what they physically, materially have. But if you remember, it's like he who gains the glory of the world truly loses the place in heaven. He who loses his life for the sake of the world, truly gains his place.
And maybe that bum on the street is a test for you, and God is testing you, because that could be an angel sitting there, and you just shunned them away.
And so many people,
God is testing your own heart.
Prophets of life today that were alive back then, they would be like, oh, you need to be diagnosed with this, and you take this psychological psych meds.
Oh, you're paranoid schizophrenic.
Yeah, I'm sure the prophets were.
But the Lord reveals, and blesses and aids and abides us. Who blesses is the one who goes to the ark of refuge and big counsel.
So the thing is, we have to, where there's some truth to, working hard, and there's value to that. There's always a God factor, and you see it even in Scripture. God says, "I am the one who I will prosper you. I will take care of you. I will do this for you." And sometimes it's good. Sometimes He also says, "I will destroy you. I will do this to you," and so it comes from the hand of God. And so you can do all the right things. You can have the PhD. You can stay out of trouble. You can do all this and still not find success in life. So this whole idea that each person is in control of their own destiny, and you just have to, to do what you need to do to find success and happiness and all that. That doesn't really wash with how God has created us. He's created us for community and to find success through community by supporting and helping one another. And so if one of us succeeds, we all succeed. If one of us fails, we all fail. That's how we have to think about it. In Genesis 3:16 and 17, it says, "Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception." I'm not going to read King James, sorry. I'll go New King James, it's a little bit better. Yeah. "To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Then to Adam he said, Because you have heeded the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, You shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return." The result of sin coming into the world is the fall and the the effects of the fall has created a planet that is in decay and destruction, and we live in a screwed up world, and it gets more and more screwed up all the time. A month or so ago, I made a list. I went to a couple of websites, and I made a list of various social and psychological issues that are in our world, and particularly in our culture. And I'm actually going to read this to you because it might be shocking to you just how screwed up our world is. And it's not even a comprehensive list. It's extensive, but not comprehensive. Now, as I go through this, also, like, kind of think in your mind. Really have to think quickly because I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. When was the last time you ever heard a teaching on this from a church or a church leader or anything? Some of these things you might say, oh, well, not that long ago, but other thing, I think you'll be surprised. Abandonment, abortion, abuse, academic freedom concerns, addictions and compulsions, ADHD, adjusting to change or transitions, adoption, affirmative action, ageism, agoraphobia, alcoholism, anger, animal rights, anxiety, attachment issues, birth control, bipolar, blended families, body image, breakup, bullying, cancer, capitalism, capital punishment, career counseling, career issues, censorship, child adolescent issues, child labor, children's rights, church-state separation, chronic illness, pain, or disability, civil rights, codependency, commitment issues, communication problems, compulsive spending or shopping, consumer debt and bankruptcy, control issues, corporate downsizing, creative blocks, cyclothymia, and I don't even know what that is, defense spending and preparedness, depression, discrimination, disassociation, divorce, domestic violence, drug abuse, eating disorders, education, embryonic stem cell research, emotional abuse, emotional intelligence, emotional overwhelm, emptiness, environmental issues, environmental pollution, euthanasia and assisted suicide, family problems, family of origin issues, fear, fertility issues, food and drug safety, forgiveness, gambling addiction, gender issues, genetic engineering and GMOs, global warming, grief, loss and bereavement, guilt, gun control, health, illness and medical issues, health care reform, helplessness or victimhood, HIV and AIDS, hoarding, homelessness, homosexuality, human rights, identity issues, immigration, inadequacy, individuation, infidelity, affair recovery, intellectual disability, internet addiction, irritability, isolation, jealousy, judicial reform, learning difficulties, life purpose, LGBT issues, marriage or pre-marriage, media, sex and violence, midlife crisis, mood swings, multicultural concerns, nuclear proliferation, obesity, obsessions and compulsions, oppositional and defiant behavior in children and teens, organ and body donation, panic, paranoia, parenting, perfectionism, phobias, physical abuse, polyamory and non-monogamous relationships, postpartum depression, poverty, power, pregnancy and birthing, prejudice and discrimination, prostitution, psychosis, PTSD, racial profiling, recycling and conservation, rejection, religious issues, same-sex marriage, schizophrenia, self-actualization, self-care, self-compassion, self-criticism, self-doubt, self-esteem, self-harm, self-love. Yeah, there's a lot of self stuff there. Sensitivity to criticism, sexuality, sex addiction, sexual abuse, shame, single parenting, sleep disorders, smoking cessation, social anxiety and phobias. I am almost done. I'm in the yeses. Socialism and big government, somatization, spirituality, stress, suicide, tax reform, terrorism, tobacco, trust issues, unemployment, values clarification, violence, welfare, women's rights, workplace issues, world population, worry, worthlessness, and youth issues.
That's a long list.
Yes, it is.
I
It's a
don't think
messed up world we
What was
live
that
in.
about?
It's a good thing. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think you had thieving in there.
Yeah, or stealing, burglary, or it could be in the bees.
The 10.
Yeah.
The 10.
Burglary, yeah.
10 commandments.
Like I said, it's not even, as long as that was, it's not comprehensive. Extensive,
It's a
but
good
not.
thing
Yeah.
righteousness endures forever.
Mm-hmm. So now, the point to that is that we live in a messed up world to the point where all of us, no matter what our relationship with God is, but especially, yeah, but especially, well, it doesn't matter what kind of relationship with God we have. We are going to encounter these things in one way, at least some of them, in one way or another, on a regular basis, just because this is the world that we live in. We got to deal with this stuff, and we all deal with these kinds of things and other things that aren't even on the list all the time. And so, for us to think, well, we can just go through life and deal with these things ourselves, it's just too much for us to try to handle ourselves, especially since there's a lot of demonic powers that are behind a lot of these things. And so the thing is that we don't face, thankfully, all these things all the same. And so where I might be dealing with one particular issue or two or three or whatever, there's things that I'm not dealing with, and that I could help somebody else who's dealing with something else. I think that every believer is called to ministry of some kind, and the Great Commission and other passages are not for just certain believers, but for all. We're all called and gifted to some kind of ministry to support people who have various issues. And I think that for the most part, the church as a whole is silent on a lot of these issues. We've staked our claim on certain things, like a handful of those things, and we fight hard with certain things, and then there's other things that a vast majority of that list we don't, most passersby don't even, there's some things on the list I don't know what those things are. How can we help people who are dealing with certain issues if we don't even know their issues or what they are or how to deal with them? Now maybe not each person has to be able to deal with all those issues, but as a church, because that would be impossible. As a church,
as individuals, like that genetic modifying food, and
yeah,
the bills they're trying to pass, having 5 days more of food in your refrigerator could be considered an act of terrorism. Like some of these bills they're passing, it's like I want to
and that's
just to oppose half of the bullpucky.
That in itself is because believers aren't active enough in politics. We've kind of stepped back from politics. Freedom. Well, if we're not involved, then who is? People who don't know God, people who have their own agendas, and they're getting their stuff passed because we're not doing enough.
Because we don't fight enough.
It's not about fighting. It's about acknowledging, educating, and having the awareness.
But the people don't want to do it.
When people do have the awareness, acknowledge it, it's like, what do? You can vote. That's what you do.
That's why you
a lot of believers don't even vote.
They don't vote. A lot of people, they show up, they don't vote.
A lot of people in the world, they know that there's these problems and that the world is this screwed up, and they see us and our religion, and it doesn't make sense, because there's, well, how can there be a loving, all-powerful God and that he would allow all these things to be around? The thing is they're there in part because we live in a fallen world, but also, though God has supreme power, he chooses to work in this world through his people. So the reason why there's not these things aren't being dealt with the way they should be is because God's people aren't doing their job. We're supposed to be at the forefront of helping people who have these kinds of issues and supporting the world, and at least supporting those who are in the church that are dealing with this. So the church is a sanctuary from these kinds of things. If that was the case, there would be people flocking to churches.
But you know what, Kara, I have to tell you, as a person who's been on both sides, I believe that when a person, they teach you and you practically maybe in high school and you went to college and stuff, they teach you the first thing is religious and politics do not mix together. Actually, they do because if a religious person has maybe more outlook, can really look what's up there in the churches. But religion and politics don't mix together. So a lot of people, they don't, like I said to them, why don't you speak and say whatever? They say, no, because I'm a religious person. I'm not in politics.
Yeah,
but that's when you have to say your voice. And a lot of people don't want a voice because they think on a religious opinion doesn't count. Yes, your opinion counts. You need to make it hear, listen. People will listen if all people that believe in the Lord would speak up. I think in Canada, the people, the righteous, who believe in the Lord, is the righteous God. But if people do not say politics and religion, don't know. They need to acknowledge, I believe in the Lord and I believe this is what, But people don't do it.
Well, because our country, like in elementary schools, they pass laws to where they reserve the right that they don't have any organized religion at all.
When you go to college, the first thing you learn is religious and politics do not mix together. So where I fit, I used to think to myself, do I fit somewhere because mentally I was raised a very religious person. Do I fit anywhere? I need to voice how I feel. But then you're afraid to
You're
voice
alone with everybody.
what you feel because they're gonna put you in that she's a religious fanatic. Don't listen to me.
Well, what people don't realize is that everyone is religious in some way. Even if you don't believe in God, that in itself is a religious belief. And if the people who don't believe that there is a God and base everything on science and whatever, and science is your God, then those are the people who are making the decisions for the country, and that's why there's so many problems. So we have to get more involved. We have to stand up more for what we believe to be true. Otherwise, they're just going to take over.
You hear the atheists go, I'm an atheist. Swear to God.
I know. Yeah.
You gotta live the changes you want to see in the world. Not just telling them to show them.
But it's that ridiculous. It's that foolishness.
Yeah.
But I'm an atheist. I don't believe in anything. What do you believe in? What do you believe? I'm like, what do you believe?
Yep. We part of this whole idea of each person being in control of their own destiny and success and everything comes this idea, well, I have enough problems of my own that I'm dealing with, and so I can't help somebody else because I gotta keep my own life in order as much as I can. Once I get my life straightened out, then maybe I'll help other people. But the thing is that's never going to happen, really. Even the richest people have their own problems, and I mean, look at
Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
All that money.
You know that.
Going straight to hell with all that money.
My favorite Christian station. My favorite Christian radio station is from the UK, and so I get like their news over in the UK, and it mixed in with their in the 5 or 6 stories that they'll give. I think it was yesterday I was listening, and they were all from different things going on in the UK. But then they talked about about Justin Bieber and the Lamborghini thing, and I'm like, are you serious? Like, people overseas, what they hear about America is some idiot in a car, and I'm like, really? No wonder people hate us. I know. They just think we're all spoiled brats speeding around in Lamborghinis. And so, anyway, the thing is we're commanded in Torah to I didn't put the scripture in there, but it's in, I think this is Leviticus 19. And I almost never quote from Living Bible, but do not stand idly by when your neighbor's life is threatened. That's a command in the Bible. It's not just a suggestion. It's a command in the Bible. And that's not the only. There's other commands that show us that we are to be that teach God's people to be responsible for one another and the things that belong to your neighbor and other people. You know, when your neighbor's donkey falls into a ditch, you don't just turn the other way and ignore it. You help them get it out.
Even on the Sabbath.
Even on the Sabbath, yeah.
Like trying to condemn Christ for healing on Sunday. It's like, if you see a donkey drowning and it's Sunday, are you just going to walk by it?
Yeah.
Of course not. No.
Which I'm getting kind of tired of my neighbor's donkey falling into a ditch. It's been like 3 times this week, and it's really getting irritating. But we're commanded to help them, It's not just, I'm not feeling like it today, or, we're commanded. And so if we're saying, well, I've got to get my life in order before I can help somebody else, we're neglecting part of God's word and doing what God is telling us to do, to be responsible for other people and help them with their lives. The thing is if we're all doing what we're supposed to be doing, I don't have to be so concerned about, well, how am I going to get my needs met? Because other people are going to be concerned about that. If I'm feeding you, then you're feeding me, and we both get fed. But, Yeshua said that those who try to hold on to their life will lose it. Those who give it up for my sake will gain it. So the more we try to solve our own problems and try to deal with our own lives and get our own lives in order, usually the more our lives get screwed up. When we start focusing on other people and helping other people, we tend to have more success with helping other people than fixing our own lives. And then when we allow ourselves to be helped by other people, then that's when we actually start dealing with some of the problems and getting healing and getting the help that we need. Because if we could fix the problems, we would have fixed them a long time ago. If it's been like 5 years and you're still trying to deal with the same problem, then should tell you maybe there's something you don't have right. If somebody else tries to help, then maybe you can finally get that. Colossians 3. I'll look that up real quick. 8:3-8-13. Actually, press the little arrow thing to say go look for it. Okay. 8. But now you yourselves are to put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth. Do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old man with his deeds, and have put on the new man, who is renewed in knowledge according to the image of him who created him. Where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave nor free. Scythian, yeah. Scythian, yeah. Slave nor free, but Christ is all and in all. Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so you must also do.
What's that reference again?
Colossians 3, 8 to 13. Kind of a short message tonight. That's because I'm not going by script. And didn't have like a month and a half to dwell on it. So, since it is important for us to have unity and support in the community of Messiah, Satan is going to do everything he can to drive wedges between us. And it starts with the culture and the way our culture tries to isolate people. But if that doesn't work, and we decide to try to get together, and especially in the name of Yeshua, and we develop friendships, and we develop congregations, and we start to have bonds and relationship, and we start working together to build God's kingdom on earth, and so Satan hates that. And so he's going to do everything he can to drive wedges between us, to isolate us again. Because it's kind of like in places like Africa, where you have lions or hyenas or whatever, when they go on a hunt, what they want to do is get one of the, whatever their prey is, to get one of those animals away from the rest of the herd, because once they're alone, they're an easy target. And so if God can separate us from each other, isolate us from each other, that's when he can start feeding us his lies better, and get us to focus on our issues, and not on loving others. And Yeshua said that a nation divided against itself cannot stand. And so the more there's division, the less effective we are. So he can separate us through bitterness, offense, envy, unforgiveness, and all of that kind of thing. And because we're human, we're not perfect. If we hang around each other long enough, we're going to offend each other. We're going to do something stupid to get each other mad, and it requires forgiveness and patience and understanding, and not taking that offense. We had that whole series by John Bevere on not taking offense, because the offense will come. It will be there. And it's our choice when that comes to either take it up and the walls go up, or to give it to God and let him deal with that, and maintain that relationship with whoever it is, so that we can preserve unity. As much as I would like it to be so, there are no Lone Rangers in the kingdom of God. There are no hermits that live by themselves in a cabin on the mountains that nobody sees for months or years. Everyone lives in community. If we are going to have the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven, we have to support each other, as well as those in need in the community, a lot better than we do. Something I didn't put in the message that I wanted to bring up. Wherever Yeshua went, thousands of people would gather to get healed, and to hear him teach, and things like he was like a rock star. And and he didn't have to advertise or try to get people to come and see him. It just happened. He had to go out on a boat in the middle of the Sea of Galilee and stuff, just to get away from people at times, which he did have to do for his sanity. Which, if you're driving God nuts, there's something there's something wrong with that. But he did, because he was also human, and so the human side of him needed a break from people once in a while. Anybody who deals with people on a regular basis knows. Yeah, it makes me feel a lot better. But the thing is the reason why he was so attractive to people, because he met people where they were at, and he gave them what they needed at that particular time, whether it was just somebody to talk to, or whether they needed a new leg or something. They were blind and they needed to see. He would give them what they needed at any given time, and every healing was individual to a particular person. He didn't just gather 4,000 people and say, okay, you're all healed. It was all individual, and he gave people what they need. He met them where they were at. He didn't judge people where they were at. He talked to a woman at the well who had been married like 7 times, and she was just living with the guy she was with at that time. He never condemned her or judged her. He told her what he knew, but he's a Jew and she's a Samaritan, and normally he wouldn't even be talking to her because of that, let alone her lifestyle. But he talked to her and met her where she was at, and she got some degree of healing from that, and was able to then go and essentially be one of the first missionaries, because she went back to her village and said, hey, this guy told me everything. And that's how we need to be in our world. We're not meeting the world and its problems where it's at. We're just like gathering in our churches and doing our little, feel good of the week service, and going off and then doing our own thing. And they're not seeing any difference. They're seeing the same problems in the world in the church. I'm like, well, if this is the way it is, then obviously their God can't do anything better for them than what I'm trying to do. So why should there's no value in it? We don't have any credibility, because we're not any different. And that's what they're looking at. They don't care so much what we believe or say we believe. They're looking at our life and how are we living our life. And is whatever we believe doing anything better for us than it's doing for them. And when it doesn't, we just lack credibility. And they don't care what we have to say. We got to show them Christ first. We got to show them our faith first. And when they see that, then they're a lot more receptive. Okay, you've got something that I don't have. What is it? It's like Paul and Silas in prison, and they're singing praise songs the whole time they're in there. And then there's an earthquake. Everybody else is gone, and they're still there. And the jailer's like, man, there's something about you that is different. What do I have to do to be saved? They didn't have to try to save the guy. They're not here, have a track. Read this when you get a chance. He's coming to them saying, there's something about you. What is it? I want it. And that's how we need to be. And that comes from getting out of ourselves, getting out of our little comfortable world that we live in, and doing what God has called us and gifted us to do, to help and support other people. So
I like that, what you're saying, that with Christ, every time he would heal someone or he'd do anything, he'd be like, well, may your faith make it so,
Mm-hmm.
If he wouldn't just tell him, he'd show him, and, he'd always ask him, like, you believe this is possible through God?
Hey, 2 things, man,
Mm-hmm.
that I'll put in with you on this. Number 1 is, remember this,